Please recite one Surah Al-Fatiha, 3 times Surah Al-Ikhlas for Allah marhumin marhumat, inshallah. Especially those marhumin we are missing. Ijaz Bhai as well. And all our marhumin, inshallah. أفوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد ما شاء الله ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعمه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الهمم ولا يناله غوص الفتن الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت معدود ولا أجل ممدود فطر الخلائق بقدرته ونشر الرياح بالرحمة وابتدى بالصخور ميدان أرضه ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على النبي الأمي القرشي الهاشمي المكي المدني سيدنا ومولانا وطبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا بالقاسم محمد وعلى آله أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الميامين المنتجبين المظلومين لا سيما بقية الله الأعظم في الأرضين أرواحنا وأرواح العالمين لمختمه الفداء واللعنة دائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من يوم ظلمهم إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد صلوات على محمد وآل محمد ومن مؤمنات أعظم الله أجرنا وأجركم. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you greatly for your participation in these days of Aza and commemoration and remembering the tragedy that befell the house of the Prophet of Allah, that happened to the family of the Prophet of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us and orders us as Muslims to have love and show devotion and show respect and love for the family of the Prophet. And part of love is to journey with somebody, is to be with somebody when they are happy and when they are sad, when they are celebrating and when they are grieving. And when we follow the family of the Prophet of Allah, we see that these days of Arbaeen, these days of the month of Safar, were very difficult on the family of the Prophet of Allah. That after Karbala happened, after the tragedy and the massacre and the killing of the grandson of the Prophet, within one generation of the arrival of Islam, the family of the Prophet, the grandson of the Prophet, was killed by people within the community who claimed to be Muslims. That tragedy of Karbala, one part of it is that it was repeated as a memory again and again in our sacred lives. That Karbala was not only to Imam Hussein, and it ended there. The Imams after him, the Ahlul Bayt after him, the holy leaders from the family of the Prophet after him, they reminded us and repeated for us again and again that pay attention to this point, that mourn and grieve for Hussein, that remember Hussein and cry for Imam Hussein and his companions. Because the Prophet did so, the angels do so, and the Imam of our time does the same thing. Recite a salawat, please. So it is part of our faith and requirement in the Holy Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is requiring us to fulfill this duty of love and devotion to the family of the Prophet. That is what we are fulfilling. In these days of Arbaeen, again, we see that Arbaeen or Arbaun in Arabic means 40. 40 is an important number. And why it's an important number, I don't want to get into now. But just simple to say that 40 is a means of completion, means of perfection. The 40 days. If you do something for 40 days, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes you, integrates that into your life, brings that into you and makes you increases your capacity to do something if you practice something for 40 days consistently. Be that devotion to Allah, be that self-improvement, be that change in yourself. What happened in Arbaeen, briefly, is that the murder of Imam Hussein and his companions happened on the 10th of Muharram, as we know. And after that, the family of the Prophet of Allah, the Ahlul Bayt, they were taken as prisoners from Karbala to the city of Kufa, which was the big city in Iraq, and from Kufa all the way to Damascus. There, the tyrant, the Taghi, the ruler who had stolen power through corruption and through the actions of his father, Yazid, through the actions of Muawiyah, who had set all this up, Yazid had said to the Muslims, he had lied to the Muslims. He had told the Muslims that there was a rebellious group who was in Iraq, and I fought them and I killed them, and I am celebrating because of this. This was the lie that Yazid told the Muslims, and sadly, up until this day, there are some Muslims who believe this. There are some Muslims for whom history is not clear. History is not clear. So when he told them this, what happened? All the prisoners, including the small children who were hungry and thirsty, the small children, may Allah preserve the next generations and all our next generations. They came in this, I was sitting here, they came, one is named Ali, another one is named Ali. I'm sure there are more named Ali, and I'm sure in the sisters they are named Fatima. These are beautiful names. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring them to act upon and be like these holy personalities. Rishad salawat for the children, please. The children of Imam Hussein, the children of the Ahlul Bayt, they were taken as prisoner. The ladies, Sayyidah Zainab, the wives of Imam Hussein, and Imam Zain al-Abidin, who was the Imam of the time, the one who represented the Imamah and the office of the Imam, and who was the descendant of the Prophet, they were taken in chains, and they were taken as prisoners. And they were brought from Kufa to Damascus on a long journey. They did not have cars back then. They had camels and they had horses to carry. But even the way that they were taken, even the journey, where this is not our topic for today, but the journey itself is a whole point of discussion. How they were taken, and from what places they were taken, and from what places they were not taken. Because when the Muslims, they heard that the official news and the official propaganda and what the media is telling them of that time is that some people were killed. We don't know who were killed, so we have to find out. They are being brought to Damascus, which was the seat of power, which was the seat of rule for Yazid and Banu Umayyah. When they were being brought there, the Muslims were able to see who these people were. And when they started seeing who these figures were, then they started to realize that they had been lied to, that a lie was being told to them, that history was being erased and history was being changed. That is what they were being told. That is what they were being told. They saw that Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam, Risala Salawat, please. He's the Imam of the time, and he is in chains walking through the streets of Damascus. And an old person comes and he starts cursing the Imam. He says, you people, you rebel against the Khalifa, you rebel against the powers, and you rebel against the ruler that we have here. Who are you? Why did you do this? The Imam went back to the Quran. The Imam went back to the Quran. You see, the way to counter history is to go back to the Quran. We do not have a collection of Sahih Hadith in Shia faith. We don't have Sahih Hadith because you don't put history in front of the Quran. When you get your Aqidah and belief, you get it from the Quran. Every generation should go and look at the Hadith again and again, and the opinions of the ulama change. about the hadith. Which one is correct, which one is not correct. We learn a little bit more about the transmitters, about the names, and so on. That is why we don't have collection of any Sahih hadith. So when the Imam talked to this old man, the Imam went back to the Quran. He said, "Ya Shaykh, old person," with respect, the Imam said, "Have you read the Quran or not? Have you recited the Quran? You claim to be Muslim and you claim to be in the rule of this Khalifa who is Muslim, Yazid. Have you read the Quran?" And the old man said, "Yes, I have read the Quran." He said, "Have you not read the verse of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Prophet, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى." Say, "Oh Prophet, say to the Muslims, oh Muhammad, tell them, oh Muhammad, that I do not ask you any reward for bringing Islam. I brought you Islam, yes. I taught you Islam, yes. I told you to say La ilaha illallah, yes. I saved you from worshipping idols, yes. I saved you from killing children, yes. I saved you from the hellfire, yes. What is my reward?" Must be a reward, right? Justice. If someone is bringing you something good, there must be some reward for that person. This is natural human justice. That reward and that thing that the Prophet asked, the Imam said, was love for his qurbah, for his family, right? This is the ayat of the Quran. The Imam read this, and the man said, "Okay, this is true. This ayah in the Quran is there." Then the Imam said, "We are the qurbah. We are the family of the Prophet. That love for us is wajib on all of you. And see, and see what it is that you are doing with us." Risala Salawat, and please move a little bit closer. More brothers. The second thing that happened during these days of Arbaeen is after the Ahlul Bayt went there, then they returned back to Karbala, and on the day of Arbaeen, they turned back, and Sayyid Zainab and the Imam returned to Karbala to give their salam to Imam Hussein. During this period, when they were in Sham and Damascus, many things happened that showed the reality of Karbala and what Yazid was trying to do to the Muslims. Another thing that happened was that the blessed head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, along with the heads of the other companions who were slaughtered, along with the heads of the Shuhada of Banu Hashim, Ali Akbar, and others, along with the heads of Habib ibn Madahir, Muslim ibn Awsaja, Burair, Nafi ibn Hilal, all the companions of Imam Hussein, the greatest companions. They were taken because Yazid wanted to show his force to the world. These heads were taken on spears, and all the people could see that these heads are on the spears, including the head of Imam Hussein. It's the height of oppression and cruelty to the family of the Prophet of Allah. I want to bring your attention to this point. When the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam was taken, Zayd ibn Arqam, who was a companion of the Prophet, who had seen the Prophet of Islam in Medina, who had witnessed and lived with the Prophet of Islam in Medina, he was living in Damascus. He was living in Sham at that time. When he saw outside from his house, the narration says, he looked outside his house and he saw a procession. Some people are beating drums, some people are celebrating, the people are dancing, they're giving out candy and sweets. Why? Because the official position is that Yazid won. We are celebrating a victory. Behind that, there's a group of prisoners who are the Ahlul Bayt. So he sees some faces he begins to recognize, and on the spear he sees the head of Imam Hussein. And he recognizes that immediately. He recognizes that immediately. What does he say? He says that the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is reciting the verses of the Quran. Specifically, one ayah and one verse of the Quran is being recited by the head of Imam Hussein. أم حسبتم أن أصحاب الكهف والرقيم كانوا من آياتنا عجبا. Do you not recognize and know that our signs, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, verse number 9 of Surah Kahf, that the people of the cave were from our greatest signs, Allah is saying, from our greatest ayat, from the greatest ayat. This is the verse that is coming out from the lips of the head of Imam Hussein. Zayd witnesses this. What does he do? He follows. He follows. He says, this is not what I've been told. This is not what I heard yesterday from the news. This is not what the media is telling me. This is not what Yazid is trying to tell us. I'm going to follow. So this procession ends up in the court of Yazid. And when he's sitting there on his throne, and he has this debate with Sayyidah Zainab and Imam Sajjad, and they give their khutbahs, that's a different discussion. When that happens, when Yazid is talking, Zayd goes and he interrupts. He interrupts Yazid. He says, Yazid, what have you done? What are you doing? Yazid said, what do you mean? He says, this is the head of Imam Hussein. How many times in Medina did I see that these lips kissed the body of Rasulullah? That Zayd says, he quotes, says that the walking, beautiful, beautiful point, imagine this. He says that the walking or the movement of Hussein on the earth was less than the time he spent close to the Prophet of Allah, sitting with the Prophet of Allah, or being carried by Rasulullah. When people saw the Prophet of Allah in Medina, the time that, imagine if someone is here, imagine if, let's say, your child is here with you. May Allah preserve your children. If people look at your child, they say, oh, this child is walking, going here or there. But they also see you keeping your child with you on your lap, or you're holding your child. So people can tell, oh, this is your child. You're showing your love and affection. Zayd says, I saw that Hussein was closer to the Prophet of Allah, being carried by Rasulullah more than he was walking on the earth at that time. And Rasulullah gave more attention to this person and held him and carried him more than he allowed him to walk on the earth in the masjid of the Prophet in Medina. Subhanallah. Wa alaikum salam. Risala salawat, please. That Imam Hussein alayhi salam had such a great position, and Yazid, what have you done? What have you done? And what does Yazid say? He says, get this person out of here. Because this person is going to cause trouble for me and my authority and my power, and Zayd is taken away from there. But my dear brothers and sisters, what is the difference between something ordinary and something extraordinary? Let me put this question to you another way. Let me ask you another question. You see the head of the shuhada, the head of the martyrs, they are killed. The companions of Imam Hussein, they are killed. Their heads are on the spears. Okay, take it. Now, when they are being carried over there, the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, who is by all measures of the dunya dead, martyr, shaheed, killed, he should not have any life in him. His soul is separated from his body. He should not be able to say or move. Correct? That's what we call a dead person, right? By our scientific and common definition. But Imam Hussein alayhi salam is speaking. And what is he speaking? He's speaking the Quran. This is what we call, in basic Islamic thinking, a miracle or a mu'jiza. A miracle is something extraordinary that happens. What is miracle? It's something extraordinary that happens. And what is the point of the miracle? What is the point? Why? What is the purpose? Why is the head of Imam Hussein reciting one verse of the Quran or other ayats of the Quran? Why? To make you cry? No. So that you can do majlis today? Not just that. So that you can remember him? Okay. Also because he wants to bring change in the society. He wants to transform the society. The point of a miracle is to be able to transform the society. What is the point of a miracle? It is to be able to transform and change the society. If Zayd had not heard these words, if other people, not just him, had not heard these words from the lips of the head of Imam Hussein, then they would not have stood up against Yazid. They would not have questioned Yazid. They would not have asked Yazid, what are you doing, Yazid? Why did you do this, Yazid? Why did you lie to us? The Ahlul Bayt are the ones who deserve respect and love. The Ahlul Bayt are the ones whose love is made wajib upon us on the Quran. The Ahlul Bayt are the rightful leaders. The Ahlul Bayt are the oppressed. They are the ones whose right has been taken. Right? All these things would not have happened if Imam Hussein's head had not brought this miracle, part of it, to the attention of the people. Risala Salawat, please. The relationship between Imam Hussein alayhi salam and the Quran is something we see closely in his life and after his shahadat and martyrdom. The relationship between Imam Hussein and the Quran. The transformation he brings in the world through the Quran. The change that he brings in the world and in amongst us through the Quran. If 20 million, 25 million people have gone for ziyarat, the brother was just asking about ziyarat before we began the majlis. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the opportunity to go for ziyarat. If we are not in Karbala today in person, we are there in spirit, right? Millions of people are going there and reading the Quran and coming back. Reading the Quran and coming back. But let me ask you this question. The purpose of ziyarat, the purpose of going to Karbala, is it not the same purpose as reciting the Quran? Yes. It is to transform and to change. That if you're going for ziyarat, you see this person going for ziyarat and coming back, going for ziyarat and coming back, and they are the same person. They are not changing. They are not transforming. They are not growing. Then you say, brother, what is the point of spending this much time and money going for ziyarat if you're not allowing the ziyarat to change you? You're just going and you're the same person again and again. The Quran is the same way. We see that in the childhood of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and Imam Hassan alayhi salam when they are in the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa as a child, Imam Hussein is there. As a child. He was born in Medina, and as a child, Imam Hussein is spending time in the masjid. The riwayat says that there was a man who was a Bedouin, and the Bedouin Arabs, they lived far away from Medina. They used to worship idols, and they did not have a good idea about Islam. They didn't know what Islam was. And some of them were very angry people. So one of them, he came, he said, I'm going to find out about this prophet. I'm going to find out about this Muhammad. I'm going to find out about this Quran. He came and he entered into the masjid of Rasulullah. And it was a small building, not a big building. At the door, Imam Hussein is standing. Where did he used to stand? At the door to greet people. So it's a sunnah of Imam Hussein to stand and greet those people who come into the house of worship and ibadat. When this man came, Imam Hussein maybe is 5, 6 years old, not older than that, because the Prophet of Allah is alive at this time. Small child. When he saw that this angry Bedouin is coming into the masjid, Imam Hussein is a small boy. He says, where are you going? Where do you want to go? He says, I want to meet this man. Who do you want to meet? I want to meet this Muhammad. I want to find out about him. Why? Because he says, the Bedouin is saying, he says that Allah will forgive my sins. Okay. And the Christians say that Jesus died for my sins. This is the argument. Imam Hussein alayhi salam smiles. And he says, do not be la taqnatu min rahmatillah. Do not be hopeless of the mercy of Allah. Walaikum salam wa ta'ala. Innahu yaghfiru dhunuba jami'an. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives. Allah forgives all the sins, not another person who died for you. You don't have to believe in a person who died for you. Allah will forgive your sins because He is merciful. And He has mercy for you. This one ayat of the Quran, this one verse of the Quran is recited by Imam Hussein for this angry Bedouin man before he has the chance to come and attack the Prophet or say something mean to the Prophet or be angry in front of the Prophet of Allah. Subhanallah. This is Hussein. This is the reality of Imam Hussein. That with one verse of the Quran, one ayat of the Quran, this man transforms and changes. He stops for a minute. He says, hold on a second. I am coming to visit this Muhammad who's a prophet. And I see this 5-year-old boy in this masjid who is stopping me and telling me the difference between Islam and Christianity. Telling me the difference between believing in salvation through someone else or Allah will forgive me directly for my sins. Not only that, he is reciting a verse from his holy book and his Quran, subhanallah. So that angry Bedouin, that confused person, that lost person, he finds some peace and solace. And before he comes to the Prophet of Allah and asks this question and eventually becomes Muslim, he calms down. So he transforms and he changes. What happens to him? He transforms and he changes because of the Quran recited by Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Recite a salawat, please. Another story about transformation and change, the life of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. We see that as a young child, he's in his family with his parents, with his brother Imam Hassan alayhi salam, with Sayyidah Zainab, Imam Ali and Fatima Zahra are there. And they, in the city of Medina, the economic situation of the Muslims was not very good, as you know. It was not the best economic situation then. Now it is a very good economic situation. But then it was not. And they needed to have some food in their house. So they went to this Jewish person who had some money. They borrowed some money from this person. And then they brought this food. They were fasting all day. They were fasting all day. Because they were fasting all day, the time for iftar came. And when the time of iftar came, at that time, they heard a knock on the door, right at that time. I know in the month of Ramadan, at the time of iftar, someone is calling you. You're not picking up that call. All of you is just silence, do not disturb, unavailable. Maulana, don't call me. It's iftar time. I don't want to know what you need. Go away. Huh? That's all of us. But Ahlul Bayt are very different. Iftar time, the knock comes. Go and open. Huh? An orphan comes. Orphan comes and says, I have no food. I have nothing. Whatever you have, please help me. They say, okay, we have some food. They give it to him. Second day, they fast again with barely any food or water. They fast the whole day. And in the evening, iftar time, same thing. Well, no, why are you calling me again and again? Iftar time, don't call me, please. Someone knocks on the door. When the knock is on the door, Imam Hussein again is a child. This is Medina, 5, 6-year-old, not more than that. When they open the door, another person comes. Who? A poor person. That poor person comes, says, what do you need? I have no food. Okay, whatever food they have, they give. Then they go out and look for more. Third day again, the third day, another knock, right at iftar time, right at iftar time, right at the most important time when you are hungry and you want to break your fast and you want to come back to normal and you want to feel relaxed because you've been fasting all day. Another knock. And at this time, there is someone who is a freed prisoner, wants food. Okay, they give it. 3 days in a row, 3 days in a row, they let the will of Allah, they let the book of Allah, they let the laws of Allah change what they expected to be a normal life. This is Imam Hussein. Transformation and change came this way. They did something unusual. They did something extraordinary. They did something that needed sacrifice. They did not live their life like you and I want to live our life. They wanted to live their life in a very, very different way, in a very exceptional way, in the way of leadership, and with sacrifice, and with dedication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is how they wanted to live their life. And they did. And when they completed that on the third day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends Jibreel with food. He sends Jibreel with a reward. He sends Jibreel with something to feed them. Not only that, Surah 76, Surah Dahr, Surah Insan is revealed for them. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. That they feed those who need food for the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The orphan, the needy, the prisoner. Risala Salawat, please. My dear brothers and sisters, why is this story important? I was speaking with this brother earlier today. He said, Maulana, the stories are great. You tell us a lot of stories. You like history. I like history. Great. But what is the point of these stories? What is the point of these stories? My dear brothers and my sisters who are listening, the point of the revelation of the Quran in this case is that we see how change and transformation happened. How to go from point A to point B. How to move from point A to point B. How to transform, as the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, transform the people of Damascus. As the actions of the Ahlul Bayt changed the society because they showed the change in themselves. The entire Muslim world today, how many Muslims in the world, huh? You tell me. Almost 2 billion, 1.7 billion. How much is Palestine and Gaza? How much is it? Is it the size of New Jersey? How big is it? The size of Missouri? I don't know, size of Illinois? Where is the sound and where is the leadership? Where is all these people and where are those who are suffering in Palestine and Gaza? It's a question I'm asked myself as a Muslim, and I'm ashamed at the answer. I am ashamed at the answer. Hundreds and thousands of reciters of the Quran, hundreds and thousands of dollars spent on Quran in Muslim countries, Arab countries, non-Arab countries. Beautiful recitations. Beautiful, oh, this is how you recite in Maqam Ajam. This is how you recite in Maqam, I don't know, Bayat. This is how you recite in Maqam Nahawan. This is how you recite the Quran. Wonderful. Is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looking for reciters of the Quran? No. That is the first question. That time is gone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not looking for those people who recite Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking for those people who let the Quran change themselves, who let the Quran change society, who let the Quran be a guide for them like Imam Hussein was. Is a big, big, big difference between reciting the Quran and letting the Quran change you and your thinking in your family, in your community, in the world, and in society. That we see that we as Muslims are reciting the Quran every single day, but there is no change. Thousands and thousands of innocent lives of children and men and women are being shed in Palestine day after day after day after day. And the Muslim leadership and the Muslim people are reciting the Quran. Subhanallah. They are just reciting the Quran. That is all they are doing. May Allah bless them. Recite salawat, please. Second thing, you look at the life of Imam Hussein and his relationship with the Quran. He becomes a young man, and mashallah, I see a lot of young faces, some new faces here. May Allah bless you. And I hope the sisters also are present. That as a young person, 15 years old, 20 years old, Imam Hussein alayhi salam is in Medina. He's in the city of Medina, city of the Prophet, his city. The city of Ahlul Bayt is Medina. The home of Ahlul Bayt is Medina. There, you see this Khalifa is on the mimbar. The second Khalifa is on the minbar. After the Prophet, the person who became the second Khalifa, he's sitting on the minbar. And some questions are presented to him. Imam Hussein alayhi salam is in the masjid of his grandfather. Of his grandfather, the Prophet of Allah. Imam Hussein grew up with the Quran. As a child, he was given the Quran. As a child, he was taught the Quran. As a child, he was completely immersed in the Quran. And that is what we have to do to our children. We have to give them the opportunity to remove their fear, remove their distance from the Quran, and become very close and intimate with the Quran again and again and again. That resulted in this Imam Hussein alayhi salam as a teenager. This Khalifa is sitting on the minbar, and this Khalifa, recite salawat please. He is speaking something, he is saying something about the Quran. All of a sudden, and this Khalifa is old in age, maybe 40 years old, maybe 50 years old. He's not a young person, and he's the ruler of the time, or he claims to be the ruler of the time. He says something from the minbar. The Muslims are listening. They're saying, oh, this is the ruler of the Muslims. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, as a teenager, he gets up. He says, get down from that minbar. Get yourself down from the minbar, because it is the minbar of my minbar abi, la minbar abik. It is the minbar of my father, the Prophet of Allah, and not the minbar of your father. Why did he say this? Why did he say this? Is the minbar something that you inherit? No, it's not because you inherit. It's not because it comes from father to son and that's how it is. Even though Imamat, part of it is knowledge is that way. But Imam Hussein continues, Sirt al-Hakim, you became the Hakim on the people, but you do not know the book of Allah. La tadri mu'jamahu wa la tadri ta'wilahu. You do not know which ayat was revealed where and which verse was revealed where and why this verse was revealed. But you are sitting on the minbar giving judgment to Muslims based on the knowledge that you don't have. Based on the ilm that you don't have. You don't have. And what did the second Khalifa do? He got down from the minbar. He got down from the minbar. Right? Imam Hussein alayhi salam, as a young person, and this is for all the, mashallah, the young faces that I see here. Recite a salawat for them, please. This act of Imam Hussein is an act of resistance. This act of Imam Hussein is an act of change and transformation. This act of Imam Hussein is an act of bravery and strength. To be able to get up and speak truth to power, to be able to stand up and not be afraid. The Khalifa has many people following him. Many people are there saying, this is the Khalifa, we like him, we don't want Ali, we don't want Ahlul Bayt, we had enough of this, we want our own Khalifa, we support him. Many people, even up till today. Am I right? Yes. But Imam Hussein is standing up and saying, no, 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 no. You are not authorized to say what you are saying on the minbar, Mr. Khalifa. Number two, because you do not have knowledge of the Quran. You are speaking on religious matters, on the matters of the deen. Even though you are speaking on any matter, you have to have knowledge of the Quran. You have to have knowledge of the Kitab of Allah. Without the knowledge of the Kitab of Allah, you will never be successful. My dear young brothers and sisters, all of you who are studying, who are in university, who are going to go to university, who are going to go to college, I want to ask you this question today. And I want you to ask yourself this question today. What is your relationship with the Quran? Ask yourself this question. It is something that you know it's there, but you don't really know much about it. So it's like a friend, but you don't really hang out with them a lot. You know they're there if you need it, but you know. It is something that you kind of are familiar with more than other people, but you're not really sure? Or is it something that you are very intimate and very close with, that any moment at any time you need to look and understand anything, it is in the Quran for you. What is your relationship? Our issue and our problem is that we don't have a strong and good relationship with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'm not saying that this will be solved by reading and reciting again and again. No, this will be solved only by understanding. It will be solved by what? By understanding, not just by reciting. Because like we know, there are thousands of reciters. Nothing is happening. No change is coming from them, even though they recite. Imam Hussein alayhi salam led the Quran, give him bravery and strength when he stood up and he said, he did not say, my father is the Imam or I am the Imam. He could have said that. He has a wilayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's masoom, he's perfect. No doubt about that. That is our aqidah and belief. But he did not argue on that basis. He argued on the basis of the Quran. He says, you became a ruler, but you have no knowledge of the Quran, Mr. Khalif. Those of you who are going to study, how many of us know about the verses and the ayat in the Quran that are about medicine? If you're going to study medicine, how many of you raise your hands, are going to study medicine? 1, 2, mashallah. I'm sure, and the sisters also. All our parents go to medical school, Mashallah, is great, it's wonderful. It's a fantastic thing. Go be a Maulana, no one tells you. Go to Qom, no. There you don't go. Only if you drop out, you go to Qom. Don't go to Qom, go to medical school. Astaghfirullah, brother. Do both. But when you are studying medicine, what is the medicine that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about in the Quran? What does he talk about in the Quran? Do we know? Who is the greatest healing prophet in the Quran? Who? Nabi Isa alayhi salam. Jesus, son of Mary, Ibn Maryam. He says that I heal the leper and the sick person bi'idhnillah, with the permission of Allah. Wa uhyi al-mawta bi'idhnillah, that I bring the dead back to life with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is Jesus, son of Mary, the great prophet of Allah. One of the 5 greatest prophets of Allah that we love and respect so much. Can medicine do this? Can we bring dead people back to life? We cannot do that. We have limits. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you the extent to which medical science is preserved in the actions of the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I am not saying try to imitate the prophets. I'm saying whatever you're searching for, search for it in the Quran. Go to the Quran first. Whatever subject you are interested in, go to the Quran first. Look in the Quran first. Follow it in the Quran first. We talked about science. We talked about technology, correct? We talk about science. Let's go to science first. We talk about science. What is the creation of the world? You study biology, you study physics. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the heaven and the earth, فَكَانَتَا رَقْتًا فَفَتَقْنَاهُمَا, they were together. They were woven together. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala separated them in Surah Al-Anbiya. We spend millions of dollars to send all these explorers on different planets, correct? These telescopes and James Webb and whatnot is going to Mars and other places. And everyone is looking for pictures of aliens. No, brothers and sisters, they're looking for water. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ. We have made everything alive with water. So the sign of life is water. It's mentioned in the Quran. Science is telling you this today, fantastic. But this is mentioned in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Ahlul Bayt and the book of Allah are together. Another thing, technology. A discussion we had today. You guys missed it about AI. What is AI going to do? Are we going to ask fatwas from AI? Is AI going to tell us when to pray, which direction to pray? Great questions about AI. It's all in everyone's minds because we want to see integrate AI into our religious practice. There can be some great things. But what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about that prophet who was the most advanced in technology in the Quran? Who is the prophet who is the most advanced in technology? Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam. Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam. That in the morning and the evening, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, he has the journey of 1 month in one morning and the journey of 1 month in one evening. You may call that teleportation, whatever you want to call that with technology. That a journey that will take you 1 month can be done in one morning and one evening. This is in the Quran. وَلَسْنَا لَهُ أَيْنَ الْقِطْرِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I have made copper subservient to Sulaiman. What is copper used for today, my brothers and sisters? What is copper used for? Technology. To move information, you need copper, do you not? All the countries in Africa that are overexploited are for copper. Oh, you got some copper? We're going to be best friends with you. Give us some copper. We need some copper. Right? The same thing. Same thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran to Nabi Sulaiman, we made copper easy for him. So you start thinking, what was copper being used for at the time of Nabi Sulaiman thousands of years ago? What was it being used for? You go and search. I'm not going to give you that answer so easily. But this is the life through the Quran, life with the Quran, life alongside the Quran, knowledge alongside the Quran. Recite salawat, please. The miracle of the Ahlul Bayt is that they, again, I come back to my earlier definition, is that a miracle is a change, it's a transformation. If you're living your life and you're trying to build a healthy family life, and inshallah trying to get into good education and good position and bringing all that back to your community, not just that you are taking that away, but bringing that back. I'll take that. Yeah, leave it. Thank you. Recite salawat, please. Bringing your knowledge skills back to your community, you can only do that when the Quran is uniting you, when you are together in the Quran. When a family spends 1 hour a week, how much time? 1 hour a week putting down that remote, turning off your Netflix, 1 hour a week that you spend with the Quran as a family. Not that I am reading in one room, you are reading in one room. No, just 1 hour a week, brothers and sisters, with the Quran. 10 verses a day. I gave homework yesterday of Surah 23, 10 verses, 10 ayat. 10 ayat again, every single day. As a family, together. Start there. Start there with the Quran. And then when we come to the centers, when we come to our congregational life, bring the Quran together. The Quran has beautiful abilities. It removes those things that are undesired, and it brings you those things that you want and you desire. It gives it to you directly. It brings that change in you. It brings that transformation in you. Look at the companions of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Look at their companions. Last point for today. Brother gave me very strong coffee, alhamdulillah. That's why I have energy. Recite salawat, please. Tomorrow we're going to the same place. The companions of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, be that Burair or Wadih or Hanzala, any of these ashab of Imam Hussein who were there with him in Karbala, who gave their life, who died, who became shaheed, who are with the Sayyed al-Shuhada and the chief of all the martyrs today. They are the best companions. No one else had those companions. The Prophet of Allah did not have companions like this. And some of them were the companions of the Prophet of Allah. But this Ashab al-Hussein, who are the best Ashab, the only other Imam who will have companions like this is Imam Mahdi. So only two Imams will have the greatest companions, Imam Hussein and the Imam of our time. Recite salawat, please. Is that they were normal people. They were ordinary people. Let's leave the Masumin to one side. But Burair and Hanzala and Wadi, all of these others, and Nafi, who used to recite the Quran, they were ordinary people like you and me initially. What happened to them? What did they do? They used to gather together in their lives and recite the Quran. This lady, not to let the ladies to the side and their role, in the city of Basra, the leader of the companions of Imam Hussein and the followers and the lover of Hussein was a lady named Maria. And she was a reciter of the Quran, that in her house, all the Muslimin used to get together and recite the Quran together. And that is where they used to receive the messages from the Imam. So they transformed their lives and they became prepared for the call of the Imam of their time with the Quran. If we are waiting today for Imam Mahdi, may Allah hasten his reappearance, if we are waiting for the savior of our time, if we are waiting for a leader who comes and brings justice to this world and removes all the oppression that we see daily and daily and daily, and we become numb to it, if we are waiting for him, he is going to come and he's not going to wait for you to learn to read the Quran. He's not going to wait for you and say, okay, brother, please take your time, learn the Quran and read the Quran with your family, and then I will. No. He's going to transmit his message to those places and those people who are intimate and close with the Quran. So he's going to look for those people who are companions of the Quran and going to say, okay, you are ready for me. You are ready for my message. You are ready to be my close companion and follower. Why? Because you are connected with the Quran. Because you are intimate with the Quran. Because you are the carriers and the bearers of the Quran already. When you carry that Quran, the Imam will know, and you will know the Imam through the Quran. This is what happened to Imam Hussein. This is what happened to the companions of the Imam Hussein. So how can we, being the followers of Ahlul Bayt, be distant from the Quran? No, no, no. We cannot. We cannot truly follow the path of Ahlul Bayt by being distant and away from the Quran. And we should let that miracle of the Quran and that ijaz of the Quran come into ourselves and let us transform and change with reciting the Quran again and again and again as we remember and commemorate this holy personality, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, whose entire life was spent with the Quran, childhood, teenage, adulthood, whose companions were the best reciters and those who knew the Quran, and whose followers are known and will be known with the Quran. There's no other way. There's no other way. So this is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Recite a salawat, please. We come now, my dear brothers and sisters, to commemorate this great personality of Abdullah al-Hussein and his friends and his companions. It really is a difficult moment for all of us to remind ourselves of the great tragedy that happened to Imam Hussein. Day after day, we see innocent people in Palestine and Gaza being killed and losing their lives and their homes. And that should remind us of the symbol of all oppression. That should remind us of that person who symbolizes all the oppressed in the world that we had, who's Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Assalamu alayka ya ibn Rasulillah. Alaykum minna jami'an salamullah. أبدا ما بقينا وبقي الليل والنهار. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. Peace be upon you, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Peace be upon you, O grandson of the Prophet of Allah. Peace be upon you, O son of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Peace be upon you, O light of the eyes of Fatima az-Zahra. Peace be upon Hussein, the commander of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. Peace be upon Hussein, the coolness of the heart of Sayyidah Zainab. Peace be upon Hussein, the father of little Sakina. Peace be upon Hussein, the father of Ali al-Akbar. Peace be upon Hussein, whose little child Ali al-Asghar was killed on the plains of Karbala, thirsty and asking for water. My dear brothers and sisters, during these days, the Ahlul Bayt were taken from place to place, and a time came that they were taken to the dungeon in the palace of Yazid, and they were kept there in a dark place face, and all the Ahlul Bayt could see was that the people were angry at them, and they were confused about them, and nobody was welcoming them. And in the prisons, there was Sayyidah Zainab, who is the sister of Imam Hussein. Zainab has gone through so much that on the day of Ashura, when Imam Hussein alayhi salam was killed, the night of Sham-e Ghariba came, and Zainab was looking for all the children, and she said, "Oh, Sakina is not here. The 4-year-old daughter of Hussein is not with me. I have to go and find her." And Sayyidah Zainab went looking for this child on the day of Ashura. She found this child hugging a body and kissing a chest that was full of wounds and blood. When she said, "Sakina, whose body is this?" Sakina said, "My dear Aunt Zainab, this is the body of my father Hussein." Zainab said, "But Sakina, a body is known by the head. This body has no head. How did you know that this was your father?" Sakina said, "My Aunt Zainab, when I was wandering this dark night, I was saying, 'Baba Hussein, where are you? My father Hussein, where are you? Your Sakina is thirsty and looking for you.' I heard a voice, 'Ya bunayya ilayya ilayya.' My Sakina, come to me. My dear Sakina, come to your Hussein." And there I found the body of my father Hussein. This night, these days, when Sayyidah Zainab was in Damascus, she was with the ladies of the household of Imam Hussein, with Layla and Rabab. And there in the dungeon, Sakina kept saying, she's a little girl of 4 or 5 years old. She said, "My Aunt Zainab, when will we go back to Medina? When are we going to return to Medina?" Sayyidah Zainab said, "Look outside, my dear Sakina." She saw some birds flying. She's a little girl. She said, "Oh, my Aunt Zainab, where are these birds going to?" And the lady said, "My dear Sakina, they are going home to their nest." And Sakina was quiet for a while, and then she began crying. The lady said, "Dear daughter of Hussein, why do you cry?" And Sakina said, "These birds are going back home. When are we going back to our Medina? When am I going to see my father Hussein? When are we going to complain to Rasulullah about what happened to us?" And then what happened was she cried so much, the people became tired. They complained to Yazid. Yazid said, "Send the head of Hussein. Send the head of her father to her so that she may become quiet." They brought the head of Hussein to the dungeon where Sakina was. She saw the head of Hussein. She ran to the head of her father. She said, "Oh, my father Hussein, who made your head so bloody? Why is your head not clean, oh my Hussein?" She started kissing the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. The ladies began crying. Sayyidah Zainab did her majlis of Aza in the dungeon of Sham. There they saw that Sakina fell asleep, hugging the head of Imam Hussein and crying. But the next morning, when Sayyidina Sajjad went to wake up this little daughter of Hussein, she was no more. She was gone, and she had returned back to her creator. There, Sayyidina Zainab said, "Oh, Imam Sajjad, dig a little grave here and let us bury this Sakina, this gift of Hussein who has returned back to Allah. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ أَيَّ مُنْقَلِبٍ يَنْقَلِبُ." Ya Hussein.